Welcome to our second episode of Credible Money Talk Food Case. Today's topic will be, will US dollar go into ICU? We have Mr. Sidarau, Managing Partner of Trusted Capital, as our host. Mr. Sidarau has more than 25 years of experience in the world of finance.
Hello money, welcome to another episode of Credible Money Talks. Following our success with our first episode on Forex reserves to GDP ratio and its impact on currency strength, we herewith present our next episode on the topic of, will the US dollar go into ICU? To understand better, let's take a walk through time into history and see what were the world's currencies before the US dollar. Does anyone know which currency was considered as a reserve currency prior to the US dollar? In this graph, you can see that before the US dollar, it was a British pound that was considered as the world reserve currency. Going back even further than the British pound, it was a Dutch bank florin that was the dominant reserve currency in the 17th century. So the question is, what happened to them? But one thing is clear from history, that no one currency has remained as the dominant reserve currency forever. It is a changing plateau in time. So let's see what happened to the Dutch bank florin. Well, the Dutch bank florin deserved its position as a reserve currency because of the Dutch Republic's dominant economic and financial strength. But into the late 17th century, the Dutch Republic went about conquering territories, or at least trying to conquer more territories through wars, and in the process used up a lot of their reserves to fund these wars with an objective to expand their position further in the world. But it backfired, and in fact the Dutch lost a lot of the wars, and in the process also lost a few of their colonies. Now this led to their economic influence to be weakened, and the Dutch bank florin status did not sustain as a reserve currency. In parallel, Great Britain emerged as a new strong economic power and subsequently dethroned the Dutch bank florin as a reserve currency. So then one may ask again, what happened to the British pound? For much of the 19th and 20th century, the British pound was the reserve currency of the world. But two world wars took a toll on Britain's resources and economic strength, coupled with the loss of colonies, territories, and economic mismanagement, led to the devaluation of the British pound, and hence the British pound lost its prominence on the global stage. And of course, the British pound was replaced by the US dollar as the reserve currency. But interestingly, one may note that the World War II, which was primarily driven by Nazi Germany's war campaign, was supported by the US economy. The United States supplied trucks, arms, etc. to Nazi Germany. It may be interesting to note that the Nazi soldiers had a favorite drink, and that was Fanta from the US. So the United States even exported drinks to Nazi Germany. The US also supplied computer systems. One may say, hey, there were no computers in that age. Yes, that's right, but IBM supplied the system to manage inmates of the labor camps of Nazi Germany. So there was the reason for Nazi Germany's ability to go about a war campaign was primarily driven by US support in its economic objective of expanding their markets in the world. So hence, the United States was in a dominant position in terms of trade with Nazi Germany, and of course all the gold bullion from Nazi Germany was shifted to the US, and hence the United States had strong currency. And if we go back to the British pound, on the other hand, even the British had to buy arms, etc., to defend themselves against Nazi Germany. And again, the British pound was under pressure, and hence all the gold bullion from Britain was also moved to the US because of the trade on arms and other logistical requirements for the war campaign. And subsequently, the British pound was bankrupt, and hence the emergence of the US dollar as the dominant world reserve currency. But did you know in the beginning, because I mentioned to you that gold bullion moved from Nazi Germany to the US, gold bullion moved from Great Britain to the US, and the US dollar was backed by gold. And what that meant was you could actually exchange US dollar anywhere to become equivalent to gold. But that was called the gold standard. But that had a lot of constraints because gold is not easy to produce, especially in those times. Technology was limited, and hence production capacity was a constraint. And hence an expansion of economy based on gold reserves as a currency is going to be a slow growth. So hence, President Nixon in 1971 removed the gold standard on the US dollar. As a result, the US dollar was freely printed, just backed by the US seal of promise to pay. And this led to a new era where the United States dollar was printed freely without the gold standard, and hence followed by all other nations as well. So the entire basis of currency moved away from a gold-backed currency versus that of a government-backed currency. So now the question is, where does the United States dollar stand today? One, you need to note, the next slide, government debt has more than doubled in the last 10 years in the US. Markets have also noticed that and are wary on the stability of the US dollar, and hence have demanded higher interest rates. And even interest rates have more than doubled in the last 10 years on the United States dollar treasury. Now, this is also further hammered by the US government having a budget deficit, right? So if you see their government budget deficit, they're one of the largest deficits in the world. And in fact, in 2023, the United States budget deficit was nearly $2 trillion. That's quite a number. So they are spending heavily on social security, health care, and also paying interest on debt, very high interest on debt. And how are they doing that? They're doing that by printing more money and hence digging a deeper hole for an impending collapse. Well, on the other hand, the world is aware of this risk, and hence we've seen the price of gold as the alternative to the US dollar rise exponentially. So now that gives us a situation of quandary. We were all so used to the US dollar as the reserve currency, but now we see that US dollar is not as dependable because of all the variables that indicate, like in history before, the reasons why the Dutch bank florin collapsed was because they went into war and ended up in huge debts, and as a result the Dutch bank florin was bankrupt. Similarly, what happened to Great Britain. But now the United States as well has funded all the wars in the world and hence ended up in a huge government debt, and $30 trillion or so. And this burden is being managed through further printing of money and further depreciating of the US dollar. So very clearly the world is not happy with that. But then the alternative is gold, but gold is quite cumbersome, and limitations on supply does not allow for easy movement of gold between countries for trade, obviously. So we may have gold-backed securities that may end up coming forward. And then of course we know in between we've also seen the emergence of crypto, and today if you see the basis of crypto is similar to that of the US dollar. It's got no basis beyond the differentiation being that the US dollar is backed by a US government seal of promise to pay versus that of crypto, but both are being printed freely without any basis of underlying value. So all these are concerns, but the human race is memory of history is far away, and as a result we are still excited about the US dollar, and when higher interest rates are offered in the US dollar, we are satisfied and tend to be US dollar minded to defend it because of the previous gains that we obtained from investments in the US dollar. In the last, at least our generation, the last 30 years, has always made good gains on investments in US dollar. So hence there's this psychological intent to keep putting your bets on the same casino table which gave you profits and gains in the past. But I'm concerned that we may be caught with our pants down. So there are new directions that are emerging, and one might have heard of something called BRICS, and before it was 5 nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, etc. But then today, as we are talking, there are 29 to 30 countries who have signed up to be part of BRICS. But of course, it's still an idea. BRICS is still an idea, and the purpose of BRICS has been to try to mitigate all the risk that these countries are facing due to the US dollar's dominance as a reserve currency, and which is a depreciating currency at this stage, and trying to find ways to create another currency that could be traded among BRICS nations to basically give a alternative to that of the US dollar. But well, we have seen what happened in the case of euro. When euro emerged as a currency, everybody in the world thought that is the future. But we do notice that when different countries come together and pool their resources to decide to put up a currency, there's going to be disagreements based on how economic policies run from one country versus the other. And Switzerland never joined the euro, and Great Britain also kind of stood out of it, and countries had conflict between Italy and Germany and France on how they want to manage the euro, and hence we've seen basically the euro has collapsed, and there's no way anybody's accepting that as a reserve currency in the world today. So hence BRICS has got a challenge on how they're going to address these disparities of economies and policies between countries to put up one currency, and how is the equation for translation, and what's the criteria for the translation between a currency to that of a local currency. It's a very long process, and at this stage there is no clear light in that direction apart from interest from all the countries saying, hey, we are worried, we are not happy with the US dollar status, and we want to do something about it, so let's get together and talk. So that talk is happening. So we'll see in time what happens, and I guess that will be anybody's guess on what could happen in going forward. But we can all be aware to be wary of the status of the US dollar today, and need to keep ourselves abreast of market trends to keep ourselves ahead of the game and not be on the losing front. So thank you for watching, and hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you do want to read more about it, you could download our newsletter, Credible, and also interact with us through social media, and we'll look forward to your views and participation, and we could even have other discussions going forward on this. Thank you.